What's up and welcome back to the Kinda Funny Gamescast, a star-studded Gamescast. Today we're talking about so many different video games because it's that season, everybody. Of course, I am Tim Geddes. I am joined by the new face of video games, Blessing Adeoye Jr.
Good day, Tim.
The Big Daddy himself, Greg Miller.
Good evening, Tim.
We got some of that, the stinky smoke today.
Oh, do we?
Take it in. It's review season and the stinky smoke.
Mike
everyone.
and Andy, I got Andy's cold, so we can't smell.
Yeah, I can't smell it at all, Tim.
Wow.
I'm trying.
I got the microphone that Greg was using right before this when we were recording a different show.
Yeah.
He was coughing the entire
You're
time.
but we're well beyond me being contagious. Don't worry about
But
it.
I can smell the microphone.
You'll be sick next week.
There's a lot of things to smell, everybody. Isn't that right? Master of hype, Snowbike Mike.
Yo, what up, Tim? Thanks for having me.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. Thank you so much. We're playing Pokemon over on the live streams. Been having a ton of fun. And yeah, it's all positive over in my world.
I enjoy your little fleece situation we got going on.
Thank you. You know, maybe it's for the review today. You know what I mean? Got to keep it cash. Got to keep it a little nice, you know?
He's 100%. He's not feeling any sickness whatsoever.
100%.
Totally
How are
good.
you feeling, Nitro Rifle Andy Cortez?
I'm feeling great.
Good.
It reminds me of, you know what? Dumb and Dumber Lloyd Christmas when he's at the Winter Lodge.
Yeah, sure, 100%.
I love it.
It could
Good.
be us together
Why?
forever.
Let's get a matching
It
fleece
could
with
be
them.
us, everybody. It could also be you with the Kinda Funny membership. It would get you this show ad-free. You can watch live as we record it unless there's an embargo like there is today. And you get a daily exclusive Greg Way, a multimedia experience unlike any other, some would say. You could be a Patreon producer like Carl Jacobs, Kieran Hovasapian, and Delaney Twining. We appreciate all of you so very much. But if you don't have a buck to toss our way, that's totally cool. Thank you so much for watching or listening, however you would like to, whether it's on YouTube or podcast services around the globe. A little bit of housekeeping for you. Like I said, it is review season part 10. I don't know what just fell.
Like a marble. You got your
I don't know. I'm losing
your
my
favorite
marbles,
shooter
everybody.
over there.
But it's review season. You're trying to get a whole bunch of mini reviews in this episode of the Gamescast, but we didn't have enough room for everything. Stellar Blade has been reviewed on PlayStation, on PS I Love You, XOXO. It's out now. You can watch on YouTube or search your favorite podcast feed for PS I Love You, and it'll be right there for you. Who played through that one?
That was me.
That was Bless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for it for a long time.
Yeah.
Stellar Blade's finally here. We finally found it.
Is it Stellar?
It's stellar.
Good. Go listen to Bless give way more thoughts over on PS I Love You XOXO. But you're not there now. You're here, the Kinda Funny Gamescast, and we have a lot to talk about. But I want to start with something I am absolutely obsessed with right now, and that is Hades 2.
Oh.
Hades 2, everybody. Andy, I want to start with you on
What's
this
up, big
one, because
dog?
I know you've been playing the Hades 2 technical test, as have I, as has Bless. Greg and Mike, have you played this at all yet?
No, I've been playing other games I'll be talking about.
No,
Mike?
Blessing played on my account, so I'm down one boss run. But, you know, I still get 4. I still get 4 more.
So, Andy, top level, what's going on with this technical test?
The technical test is I guess a way to kind of test out the game before early access actually begins. And it's kind of weird because it's like, well, they're not. Usually this happens with multiplayer games, so I don't know exactly what they're trying to get the feel of. Maybe it is like downloads. I'm not exactly sure what they're testing out right now, but who gives a shit? That just gives us a reason to play Hades 2. And it kicks so much ass, Tim. Now you can still sign up, and they're kind of drip feeding like the releases to people who have signed up, because there's some people who weren't in on the first or second waves, but slowly but surely they're allowing more and more people in and sending them little download codes. So sign up if you can, because you never know. Odds may be in your favor.
Yeah. What are you thinking about it, though?
It's awesome. Like it just brought me back to that feeling of when Hades 1 was out, and I think it's designed just superbly. The music is incredible. Gameplay feel is exactly where it needs to be. Like, for this being a technical test, I expected to have a lot more. Like, I wish this was different. I wish you got to assume that after a whole lot of early access with Hades 1, that they kind of have a decent idea of what they're going for direction wise. The game feels amazing. It looks fantastic. There's still a couple of art assets missing, and they mentioned that in their live stream when they kind of like made the game go live initially for anybody who had signed up for the technical test. So there's a couple of assets missing whenever you talk to certain NPCs. You just see like a little placeholder art every once in a while. But it's super interesting, and I'm loving the new gods that you get to meet. I think there's some really interesting stuff. Is it Hephaestus the guy with he's like a blacksmith. His whatever he does to your shit, like he gives you an ability that a lot, like when you attack somebody, he'll attack multiple times
the
after
double
that,
thing,
and the
yeah.
sound effect sounds so good. Like the game, Supergiant just knows look and feel, and whenever there's a new ability, how are we going to like visually or sonically make the user feel good about what they're doing in this moment? When we were watching Blessing play in that first sort of stream we did, setting down that big AoE, getting using who's a horny lady with her boobs are kind of out a little bit, got her hair covered in the nips, blanking on the
wifey.
yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
I know-
There's
I
so
know
many of
exactly
them.
what
There's
you're
so
talking
many wifey. Everybody's hot in this game. But I love one of her little abilities where whenever you attack somebody, they get kind of brought towards a center point to
Aphrodite?
Aphrodite.
Yeah.
Great job. The game's fantastic, Tim. I did all the 5 runs. It ran great on my Steam Deck as well, which is very, very good news. The fact that this game is still so early on and performed great and looked and sounded great on the Steam Deck. Tim, I heard you had a weekend with this on your Steam Deck OLED.
I did. My Steam Deck OLED and my super ultra wide OLED monitor that I have.
And it's scaled.
32:9, and it scaled beautifully.
Whoa.
Danny Pena posted a picture of him playing with a similar monitor to the one I have, and it's what gave me the idea of like, I should give this a shot. And oh my God, you guys. It's so good. And I just can't believe how great it plays in that aspect ratio. Easily best game I played in that aspect ratio so far. And I think it's because it doesn't get in the way of the gameplay. It's kind of just like more just field of view for you to kind of see what's going on in the battlefield. And
does the UI go all the way to the edges, or does it stay there?
It does, and so far there's no way to change that in the options. I imagine when the full game comes out, you will be able to. Didn't really bother me too much. Yeah, we have it here, this picture here, and it's just amazing. Like the art of Hades is just enhanced so much when you get to just see more of it on a single screen. I also did the 5 runs like Andy. For people that don't know, the technical test limits you to beating the boss 5 times. You get one. There's one boss that you get to the boss of the first area. I don't know why they do that. It's kind of interesting where it's like there's a lot to do besides just getting to the boss, like upgrading all the different weapons. You get 2 different weapons in this test, and a whole bunch of different abilities and like different collectibles and things you can like craft essentially in the little cauldron and all that. And
I was surprised by the amount of new stuff I was experiencing in runs 3, 4, and 5.
Me
Like
too.
I didn't expect a whole lot of that, and I think maybe why they limited it was so that they didn't have to reuse dialogue and kind of make get repetitive and not want to show you new experiences.
Because once you beat it the first time, it's like, hey, like you can do this 4 more times, and like that's it. This is just a test, whatever. And I liked that even in the test they kind of like framed it as like part of the game of like this test is
complete.
The test complete, but whatever. It's like it's cool, like with the narrator and all that. Supergiant just does not miss. They continue to thrive here, and I didn't expect them to do a sequel to Hades. We've talked about this a lot, and Supergiant, this is their first sequel. What does that mean? What does a Hades 2 look like? And so far, it's just more Hades, which is all I could ever ask for it. But I feel like the tweaks to the game are just so impressive to me, where I played through the 5 runs. I'm probably like 5 hours into Hades 2 combined between the Steam Deck and just playing on my desktop. And I was just having so much fun that I was like, I don't want to stop. So I went back to Hades 1 just to do a couple runs. And I was shocked at how different they feel. Because playing Hades 2, I was like, it's just Hades 1 again. And it's like, oh no, there is a lot more going on. I feel like it's just a little bit tighter. It's nothing game changing. It's not night and day, but I do feel like it's just refined to the point of near perfection. And I already thought Hades 1 was like damn near perfect, if not perfect. So I'm just really impressed with the feel of it, the look of it, the sound of it. It is just tight. It is just exactly what it needs to be. The familiarity of the old gods coming back and just what they're up to now. I was a little worried I was going to be like lost because it's been a while since I played Hades. Like I could not name a single one of these people, even though I just played Hades 2 now. But getting their vibes, understanding their characters, I think they're doing a great job of, you can just jump into Hades 2. You don't need to know all the stuff from Hades 1. If you did play it, they'll catch you up. The characters are just so well defined, and like the differences between how they treat the main character, I feel like is so clear. And it really motivates me to want to do another run to get another piece of dialogue with every single character because I just want to know what they're up to. I want to know what's going on, and I want to upgrade every single thing they're allowing me to upgrade. And that to me is a sign of, oh, this is a Tim Geddes game. When I immediately am like, I want 100% every single thing this lets me even think about doing. And so I've just been having an absolute blast with it. And the magic system is something that I, on first glance, was like, I don't think I'm going to like this because Hades 1 didn't have this, but Hades 2's main character has, she's a witch. So it's like there's a lot more like witchy magic stuff going on. And while the weapons might be similar to what our boy Zagged had in the first game, there's now like a second bar that is your MP essentially that allows you to use powered up magic moves.
It's magic, but it's spelled with a K, so that's how you know.
So it's way
cool.
cooler, absolutely. And I usually don't like that type of stuff because like I'm the type of gamer that gets really like freaked out when you put a limit on a move I can do. Like when I'm playing Metroid, I have limited missiles, so I'm like, I'm not trying to use those missiles unless I'm like in a boss fight. I'm just like spam, like just to try to get that health out. Like I usually default to the more like I'm gonna hide in the back, get some slashes in, get some shots in, whatever it is, and chill. So having a limited amount of resources to use the moves kind of made me not want to do it because especially in a game like Hades that you're going room to room and like your life is going down as you go and like you're not necessarily going to get to a room that refills your HP or in this case your MP. I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to like that system in this type of game. And I mean, lo and behold, 3 runs in, whatever it is, I'm like, oh, these magic moves are where it's at, man. Like the way that they kind of just change up the regular gameplay of it all, and like just the little enhancements that they make. And then once you get the god power-ups for your normal attacks and your magic attacks, it's just a whole new layer of strategy of like, what is the right loadout for a run? What are the things that feel great to me? And in classic Hades fashion, pretty much any loadout, I can see why it would be somebody's favorite. Like there's so much versatility in.
Although Poseidon's always my least favorite.
Yeah.
In the first game,
which one's his?
Water Dude.
Oh, I love dude pushing him back, man.
Like
Get the
in
hell outta
the
here.
first game, he was my least favorite, and in this one, I'm already like, just give me somebody else. I'll go for whatever other option there is. But no, I totally feel you. It's one of those weird things that's kind of tough to explain because. You get several questions in the Twitch chat. Is this better? Is it worse? What's it like? Is it just like Hades 1? It's like, yes, and it's super similar in a lot of different ways. And it's, you feel like you're being reductive in that sense. You feel like you're being negative and like, it's just the first game again. But it's more of one of the best games of all time. So absolutely, you should definitely play this whenever it comes out.
I mean, I often relate things to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and I'm going to do that right here. It's
Whoa.
like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. They are very similar games, but 2 had the manual. And it's like, that's all it really needed to be like, oh, it's everything I loved, but just refined. And now there's just like even more potential for this to go places.
You got Darth Maul in that game? Which one had Darth Maul?
That was 3.
Oh,
2 had
shit.
Spidey.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now
3
we're
had Darth
talking.
Maul and
Now we're
Wolverine.
talking.
And Officer Dick.
Wow.
They all have Officer Dick.
Her web connects them all.
It's true. It's true. Bless, you
His
also
dick
played.
connects them all.
You also played Hades too.
Yeah.
What was your experience with it?
No, so, I mean, same as you guys, right? I really enjoyed it. I think, the manual thing, I think puts it into like really good perspective because I found that for me, the difference between Hades 2 and Hades 1 have been more minor tweaks and like a lot of like, character, story stuff, environments, how all that stuff is shifted and moved and like, brought into a new setting and all that. But those tweaks for me really make it. Like Hades 1, I've been playing a lot recently just because I had never gotten around to actually beating the game. And so now I've been playing a lot of Hades 1 on my Steam Deck. And jumping into Hades 2, immediately I was like, okay, this is more. But as I play it, I am like, okay, but like I like that they added a run feature, right? Like you do the dash and you hold the dash and now you're running around. And that then led into, in my first run that I played on Mike's account on the stream, my build by the time I got to the end of that run, I think is indicative of, oh shit, y'all are cooking with this. Because
Deflecting projectiles.
yeah, it
so
was like,
sick.
okay, if I hold the run, as long as I'm running, I am projecting most of the projectiles that are being thrown at me. I had that, plus I had an ability that would refill I kept calling it the Omega meter, but I think it's the magic meter that you're talking about, right? The blue meter that we have right there. If I stood still, the meter would automatically fill up, which allows me to use like my powered up magic moves. So that was pretty cool, right?
That's when we talked to the little spider lady because she gives you
New outfits.
she gives you like an outfit that like, and it changes your appearance as well. And so some of the perks there are gain 2 hearts when you enter a new room, or when you stand still, you regenerate magic, and that's the build that Bless had in that moment.
But then they switched up the cast in this one, where in Hades 1 you would have like the little cast you do that was a projectile that you throw at an enemy, and then it would caught in the enemy until you take them out and you get it back in. And based on the power ups or the boons that you get through your run, that'll switch up the cast or add different effects to it. Here it's more of an AOE thing. And in my run, the first one I did where I got to the boss, I got an upgrade where I could like throw it long distance. So now it is all right, I'm throwing my cast on an enemy that creates the area of effect, but now I am like using that to like get them caught in it, and I am using my magic to then get the long range move. But then on top of that, find another boon that is when your area of effect it like goes away, if you charge it up fully, now it does like a final attack that does a bunch of damage. And doing all that in conjunction was so fucking fun. And pretty much all of that was based off of the new stuff they've added into Hades 2, right? Like those weren't boons that were based off of stuff that came from the original game. So even though it plays and moves and feels like Hades 1, I think they've done such a good job of looking at Hades and figuring out, all right, what are the things we need to do to like work with this framework that we have? Because the framework of Hades is so good already. I love that it is, hey, don't fix what isn't broken. How do we add on to this? How do we improve this? How do we like, make this the game that this is even meant to be even more? And I think they're finding a lot of those things. One of my complaints with Hades 1, probably like one of my bigger complaints with Hades 1, that is very much a me thing, because I don't see it as many people mention it. But one of the things that always bugged me was there are these dash attacks that you do in Hades, where if you dash and then press the attack button, you do like a different kind of attack, and you can upgrade that and do all that stuff. I found that as I would get further into the game, I would straight up just do that, because that felt like, for me, that was always the best move in the game. I could find really good upgrades for that dash attack. And so as I'm going, I am like dashing, attacking, and it led to this like button mashy type of play for me, where it is like, as soon as I enter a room, all right, cool, A, B, A, or I guess AX, AX, just like tapping that over and over again. Here, it seems like they removed the dash attack. Like I tried doing it, and I'm like, this isn't there.
There is an ability for it. I'm not sure if it's like you get it right off the rip. I think it is something you have to acquire.
It seems like this game focuses a lot more on the sprint being a thing that hurts people, as opposed to like the burst of the dash itself. Because it's like, there were a couple of the upgrades that like made the dash itself hurt people, but I'd say more of them that I found were like, oh, as you're sprinting and you run into someone, it leaves them with burn, or it freezes them, or whatever.
And it's improved. Like I noticed it pretty immediately, where as soon as I clocked that the dash attack isn't there, I was like, oh yeah, I am not button mashing really in this game. Like I am playing this game the way it feels like it's more so meant to be played. And I think that's just one example of like, I think they're just cleaning it up, right? Like they are looking at all the things that worked about Hades 1, which is so many things, but then even those few things where it is, okay, we can dial this in more, we can tweak this more, we can like turn this more into what it's meant to be. I think they're absolutely nailing it. And then also I just got to shout out the art. They've somehow like made the art even more impressive. Like now when the gods show up, they have like a background with them too, and you can kind of see them. It's like a phone call versus like a Skype or like a Zoom, where it's like, oh, I can see where you're at, and it's like, it looks really pretty. The updated arts.
The key art's like a lot more animated now. Like instead of being as static as they were, you see a lot of little particles. The metal on their suits kind of will have like a metal sort of sheen go through it.
And it looks really good.
Looks great.
And I love the new characters they've added, like the boss character at the end of the run. Really cool. There's another character. Nemesis. I forget her. Nemesis is fucking sick. Yeah.
Yeah. Selene was kind of like the one who gives you a frozen, almost like Kamehameha wave type power. I love the emphasis on crowd control, because your main cast, which is, again, in Hades 1, it was like throwing out that arrow blessing was mentioning, but now cast is this kind of AoE circle that you put on the ground, and the main thing there is like crowd control. Whenever you do that, when there's enemies around, you see hands come out of the ground. It's called grasp. And that the grasp move is these hands kind of sticking these enemies in place, and they can't move until that little ability goes away. And kind of basing the whole combat around that premise get enemies trapped in here and go to town on them, it is just so freaking
so
satisfying.
good.
To get
Upgrading it into like my favorite one is freeze, where it just freezes a bunch of them and then damages them over and over again,
Yeah.
and then freezes them again.
it's like a little frozen tornado.
So fucking satisfying.
Yeah, man. It's so satisfying is a word. I feel like we keep using it. It's very apt for both Hades 1 and I think especially 2. But going back to what I was talking about the Tim Geddes type shit, where I'm just like, oh man, I want to keep playing because there's so many things I want to collect and get. I think one of Hades' biggest strengths was how surprising it was for me, where here I am, 7 runs back to back, and every single run, not just the gameplay is fresh and different, but like the story bits, the things people are saying to me, who shows up in a room, like it felt like there was just endless things happening, and it felt kind of impossible to be so designed, but then also so just like open for like, it feels like something that was tailor made for me, but everyone else is getting the same experience, but they're getting a different version of it, and it just felt endless for that to be working. And I feel like this, what we've had, a very small sliver of this game for Hades 2, is continuing that trend, but even giving me more things to want to do another run for. I love in addition to the 2 weapons you get, there's these like 3 or 5 little like extra not weapons, but like tools to be able to like go.
You got a shovel to dig.
A shovel to dig some things, or like a little hammer thing, like a pickaxe to like be able to get the silver or whatever. And there's just all these different economies, and I'm just like, oh baby,
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna want to just keep going back, and I'm gonna focus on getting the silver this time, or I'm focusing on getting coins this time, or focus on whatever. And it's like I just feel like earlier on in Hades 2, it seems they're giving you more things to start building to make every run feel like you're making some progress, even if you're not like getting further.
That was always my thing with Cult of the Lamb. Like it's so easy to compare to Hades, and really any roguelite. It was like, I think Hades did it so right the first time. Not that Hades is the first roguelite by any means, but it's like the first one that kind of really hit on that level.
Sure.
Along with I'm thinking on the side
Cells.
scroller, Dead Cells,
Rogue
yeah.
Legacy.
But I just loved how anytime you'd start a run with Hades, the first god would talk to you and you'd be like, oh, it's going to be one of these runs now.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me get my mindset ready for what
Focus.
this is. And I just love that mentality kind of resurfacing several years later, being like, God, I love this experience so much. And starting a new run is going to be a new adventure. And now I got to, it's going to be an Aphrodite run, or it's going to be a Hermes run. Having Hermes make her, or not Hermes, I'm sorry. Artemis, yeah, the critical one pop up as like, similarly to when you would fight against a homeboy, when you would have to like kill more enemies than the other hot dude.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah,
Similar. Now Artemis is here doing a similar sort of thing, but she's trying to help you kill a bunch of enemies, and it's just really, really neat to meet her and just have those random
It's exciting.
meetups. Yeah, and it's like, oh, cool. This is now I can add crit to whatever it is I'm doing, and you see the purple boon pop up amongst
The music
all
changes,
different
the
ones,
colors
like,
are kind of
ooh,
in.
let's
It's like,
go.
oh man.
So exciting.
Any final thoughts on the Hades 2 technical test?
No,
Well,
I
then
almost
give it
like.
to
I
me
mean, I'm conflicted between playing more or just like leaving it and like waiting for it to come out later. I don't know if I'm in for the early access yet or not.
That's
either.
my problem.
Or am I gonna play early access, or do I just wait for it to come out?
It just seems so developed already.
Do
Yeah.
we think it comes this year? Because playing this test is the first time I'm like, oh, we're getting this year. It feels so good.
Yeah, that's. I mean, a lot of it comes down to, I mean, it really just comes down to Supergiant being like, oh, well, the final boss fight is like not finalized or whatever, and that's where this is gonna need some more time
Yeah.
to cook. But this tiny glimpse is so convincing that the game is in a very good spot.
Yeah. Moving on to the next game, Final Fantasy 16, the Rising Tide DLC, the final DLC for Final Fantasy 16. So
Lifts all
far, we'll
boats.
see if they change that, but I think they might be ending it here. I played through this just like I played through the first part a couple months ago when it shadow dropped after Game Awards. Similar length to the first round of DLC, so it's about 4 to 5 hours to do everything in it. But this one does kind of have like a battle tower type thing you can do on top of that gives endless gameplay for everybody out there that just really loves the combat system of 16. And if you played Final Fantasy 16, you probably love the combat system. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of versatility for the different weapons you can use and shifting out the different icons and all of that. And I had a really great time with this DLC. I am a little conflicted on it because from a story perspective, this takes place before the ending of the game, and it's a little hard for me to reconcile the events of this happening in the story, and it's like it makes sense. I don't like. From my memory, it doesn't really get in the way or like contradict anything. It's just a little bit of like, so you're telling me
That this happened, and they went and did this thing, but they never referenced it.
Yeah, and it's a little weird. I'll stay away from spoilers on stuff, but like, there is another icon here that you're getting, Leviathan, and it's just a little bit weird story wise for that to be happening based on what happens in the game. But that doesn't make it any goddamn less cool, because this icon fight is as cool as any of the icon fights in Final Fantasy 16, and that's all I need to say to anybody to convince them to play the damn game, man. It's so damn cool. To get to it, there's a couple side quests, and they're Final Fantasy 16 side quests, probably on the lower end of a Final Fantasy 16 side quest. Very, hey, go there, do a thing, and you go there, you do the thing, talk to somebody.
Animation super basic.
And they're just like, cool, go back and do it. They did add a function now that once you go from person A to person B, you can just hit start and it'll just bring you back to person A, so you don't need to log back. So I was like, hey, quality of life stuff. They added that to all the game as well. Like there was a patch that came out with this DLC that just kind of adds a lot of little tweaks to the core game. So I don't think there's been a better time to play it, 16 from the beginning. I really would recommend people play through this, though, like just for the fun of it and the hype of the Leviathan fight itself. It is so cool, so satisfying. It also comes with this DLC has 2 different sets of new icon powers. So 2 whole new types of combat for you to play with. I didn't love either one. I ended up switching back to some of just the more tried and true ones that I'm used to, but I enjoyed them enough to give them a shot and play through them for a little bit. But I was just like, at some point, I was just getting my ass kicked by this Leviathan guy. Little word to the wise. I almost guarantee they're going to patch this fight, because there's, in like the final phase, there's just this moment that's essentially a fucking insta-kill. And it's like, as far as I know, and I've been looking online a lot, there's only one way to actually like make sure that you get past it in time, and it's like, that's annoying, and that shouldn't be. It's one of those timed things where it's just like, you got to get this much damage in this much time, and you pretty much
it's a DPS race.
Yeah, exactly, and you're unable to do that unless you specifically start with a certain move, and it's like, guys, come on. So yeah, getting a game over screen like 6 times was not fun for that.
Never fun.
But then once I beat him, I was like, this is so goddamn cool. Very cool. The music goes off. It really felt like Soken was like, all right, this is my last chance to be in the world of Final Fantasy 16. We're going for it, everybody. And it was awesome. And I think one of the coolest things about it, besides the boss fight, besides the music, besides the new moves and everything, was story-wise, they're like, hey, we're going somewhere a little bit different than the areas we've been in, and that means the sky could be blue again. So it's not all just that purple gray fog that like the majority of the game takes place in, which was so refreshing. Like I've played so much of Final Fantasy 16, and you just get used to it kind of just being this like constant San Francisco fog-esque world that you're in, which I don't think does a game that's as beautiful as this many favors. There are some shots in the Leviathan DLC that I'm just like, wow, this shit is stunning. Like one of the bigger areas you go into, we see in the trailer, is this like frozen tidal wave. And you're like walking on to a frozen tidal wave. And I'm like, this is the coolest shit ever, man. And the grass is just so green, and the colors of everything as you get into it, and the music swelling. I was like, y'all knew what you were doing. This was awesome. So definitely, if you love Final Fantasy 16, I'd recommend playing both the DLCs just for the boss fights. Not too much time. And I do feel like you can skip a lot of the side quests if you want to. And like the core quest stuff is good just to like refamiliarize yourself with the buttons and like which icons you actually like the best. But yeah, I'm sad that Final Fantasy 16 is over, because I really enjoy how the game plays and all the things that it's delivered. But good way to go out. I just kind of wish that it didn't take place where it does in the game, but I also understand why it does.
Yeah.
So any of you guys interested in giving it a shot?
I'm very interested. You talking about the blue skies reminds me of me and Mike in Rebirth Warzone when they made that map.
Beautiful again.
Beautiful.
You know what I mean?
Beautiful again.
It's a nice sunny afternoon, dropping into Alcatraz, shooting up. Great time.
Shooting up.
I am a little disappointed that this one, The Rising Tide, only got me 2 points on our fantasy draft critic. I really thought that was going to be a little bit higher than 72, so that one hurt me.
I'm shocked you got
especially with
reviewed.
how hype you brought that, Tim. I'm surprised.
Yeah. Hype moments for sure, but I think overall the package, again, without getting into spoilers, I feel a little bit let down by some of the character work. I think that some of the promise of this DLC was maybe a focus on some characters that we wanted to get more of from the first game, and they even kind of hinted pre-release that that's what they were going to do, and they just don't. They just don't. And there's some other characters they introduced that some of them are cool, but I do feel like it's a little hard to look at it and not be like, well, if you didn't add them, you could have focused on them. But it's the type of nitpicking that you only do when you actually care. But I care, and a lot of other people do too. So
I'm excited to experience those boss fights. I mean, with how exciting all of the core ones were in 16, and how it just felt like they kept on one-upping themselves. I mean, even if it's like half of the experience of any of those, I feel like I'm still going to be pretty satisfied with it.
And it is, Andy. It is.
Hell yeah.
We're going to keep talking about some other games after a quick word from our sponsors.
Kinda Funny turns 9 years old today. We could have made it 9 days without your support. That's why 2024 is all about doubling down on our shows and making it simpler than ever for you to get the most out of our content. Our revamped Kinda Funny membership is your one-stop shop for all our amazing content, which now includes on a weekly basis the Kinda Funny podcast, In Review, the Kinda Funny Gamescast, P.S. I Love You XOXO, the Kinda Funny Xcast, the brand new series Kinda Funny Game Showdown. 5 episodes of Kinda Funny Games Daily, and 5 exclusive Gregway vlogs.
And 5 days of streaming fun with me and the gang here in our newly revamped streaming space. It's going to be filled with a ton of laughter and a whole lot of shenanigans. We'll see you there.
That's more than 20 pieces of content a week from an 11-person independent team in San Francisco. That's a lot, and to get the most out of it, all we're asking for is $10. $10 gets you the Kinda Funny membership, and that entitles you to ad-free versions of the shows, the ability to watch the podcast live as we record them, and the exclusive access to my daily show, Gregway. You can get your Kinda Funny membership on patreon.com/kindafunny or youtube.com/kindafunnygames. Yes, we are expanding our Kinda Funny membership offering to YouTube so people can take full advantage of the platform they prefer. If you want to go above and beyond the Kinda Funny membership to support us, we will still have higher Patreon tiers, albeit with some changed up perks. We just wanted to make the message as clear as possible that the $10 Kinda Funny membership is for the masses to get all of the core content people love. Everything above that is very appreciated. The support means the world to us. You all are the best. But the $10 Kinda Funny membership available on both patreon.com/kindafunny and youtube.com/kindafunnygames is where we see the value of what we do. Kinda Funny is a dream come true, and we wouldn't have it without you. We hope if you've ever enjoyed the content, you can support us for at least a month as we prepare for our biggest year ever. Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.
Another Crab's treasure. Who's played it?
Me,
Greg Miller,
Andy,
Snowbike
and
Mike,
Greg
and
Mike.
Andy Cortez. Have all three of you beat this game? Fuck no.
Yes.
No.
Andy Cortez is the only person to beat the game. Andy Cortez, what are your thoughts and what would you give it on the Kinda Funny scale?
I would give Another Crab's Treasure a 4 out of 5 grade. I did kind of wonder about halfway through whether this was like a 3 out of 5 or not. I think the game, and that sounds like a lot more negative. I don't want you to feel like, oh, it takes me that long for the game to get good. I think the game just like continually gets more and more impressive as it goes on. And it starts off with some pretty neat boss fights. But what Another Crab's Treasure is, it's a small indie studio named Aggro Crab, and they set out to make a Souls-like, like just a straight up Souls game. It's adorable. It's very cartoony looking visually, but it can be pretty brutal in its approach to trying to emulate the Souls feel. I think it's a little friendlier in ways that that Souls games definitely weren't early on, because we've just learned from quality of life changes what the player prefers, and in certain moments there's not going to be any enemies that are like backstabbing you from around the wall or like dropping on you and kind of surprising you out of nowhere. There's no fall damage, so your little crab can just kind of float in the water and fall from great heights and not worry about dropping from that big ledge that you were kind of adventuring on. Boss fights are super challenging. I already mentioned that it's gentler than most Souls games. You can run away from a lot of enemies as well. and kind of just float away if you're kind of worried about certain enemies and maybe you're low on health and you don't want to lose your microplastics. And the microplastics in this game are your souls, essentially. You collect a bunch of just microplastics because this game's all about an ocean that is just filled with trash and garbage. And I enjoyed the sort of takes that the game has story-wise, and then it kind of evolves a bit more, and I was really impressed and had a great time with what it was doing with characters and stories, and there's some pretty captivating conversations that I really enjoyed with these very cartoony looking crabs. I'd say it's voiced maybe 10 to 15% of the time. A lot of the rest of it is just a little dialogue between these characters that are not voiced. The final boss, I thought I fought the final boss about 5 different times in this game. It's got a lot of those moments.
Was that good?
Yes and no. Because anytime that would happen, I'd be hit with that sort of initial like, oh, we're still going, huh? Like, really thought this was going to end. And then I'd immediately kind of be interested in what was next. And I think the game does some really cool stuff later on that was really surprising and unexpected that I don't want to get into spoilers about. But overall, I was just very, very impressed by this game. And I've thought about it quite a bit since. I will say that the variety and creativity in the level design gets more and more impressive as you go on. I think it starts off pretty simplistic and like, here's an open world. And later on in the game, it gets a bit more like, take all these different winding paths, and now you're finding more treasures over here, more secrets. I think that the game is pretty buggy. The game is broken in a lot of different spots where I even had a full boss fight break on me, and it essentially skipped the boss fight. I've had a lot of moments where you fall through a wall when you get hit by somebody, or you fall through the floor, and you're just kind of, it's an endless thing. And in the options, there's an option to die instantly, which is usually like in a lot of early access games, you'll see like a get unstuck button to maybe you're stuck in geometry. So I got stuck in geometry quite a bit. I was knocked through the world in a lot of different moments. One of the boss fights I was looking forward to that came out during the demo was completely skipped past for me because I got hit by the boss and I got knocked through the ground. And I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to see this. Haha, funny. That happens in a lot of games where you're just kind of seeing underneath the world. And then as I respawn, it said pollution scoured or whatever it is it says whenever you kill a boss. And I was like, oh, weird. And then I suddenly got a bunch of like rewards for it. And when I got back there, the boat that the boss is sitting on, the boat's gone. So the boat seemed to have like despawned, and the boss, I guess, just fell to its death.
It might be a Metal Gear Solid 3 type thing. You know what I mean? You go down
it very
there,
well
shit
could be,
happens.
but I did beat it during the demo, which is fascinating. So that kind of stuck. There was a decent amount of moments in that I don't think is like easy to just kind of brush past, because it did feel like this game could have had a lot more time in the oven cooking with QA and focusing on these bugs. Combat, I would say, is like better than most cheap attempts at like making a Souls game, but still not quite on the level of like Eliza P or Stellar Blade, as what we were mentioning today when we reviewed that. I think that the parry timing is kind of weird. The parry feels weird in general. It's played opposite to what most Souls games are, where you normally tap the button to throw out your shield. And in this case, you're a little crab who's going around and picking up pollution and trash on the ground, and you make those pieces of trash your shell. And I think it's really creative in that sense, where a lot of the different shells come with different passive abilities and different weights to them. You can get like a small, medium, or large shell, and they all have different categories. Some have more shield than others, but when you have that shell on, you can hold the LB button, which is like your block, and you're going to want to be blocking a lot in this game. It's going to serve you greatly because in a lot of these boss fights, they have a lot of just extra shells lying around. So you want to be blocking as much as you can, and then when that shell breaks, you can go grab another shell.
Do I want to not be targeting them? Do I want to be like free of the target so I can run away quicker? And that's what I was using on my boss encounter.
I mean, I target quite a bit in this game, but I did run into several moments where I'm getting stuck in the
That
target.
first boss, man, like, you know what I mean? It would be that thing of like he breaks the shell. I'm like, all right, I know I need to get one, but I just couldn't get away from him fast enough.
I think one difficult thing is the camera. I was having a lot of issues with the camera where I'm used to locking on in Souls games, and if an enemy does a weird thing, it doesn't feel too unnatural how the camera's going to react to the enemy moving. But there's a lot of moments in here where my shit's just spinning. I'm like, what the? Where am I right now? You know. I did run into quite of like, I felt like those moments were pretty annoying, you know, to get kind of caught in an area you're like, oh, I'm dying because of this. I died in a couple of other boss fights just due to random bugs too, where I'd get hit in a certain spot and it would just like insta kill me, and where it shouldn't have happened, and the whole screen, like there's no UI anymore. Yeah, I think the parry's kind of weird, but once you kind of get used to hitting it right beforehand, you go into the shell, then you burst out, and the bursting out is what repels the enemy back in that moment. Fast travel's great. I think it's, you know, pretty helpful in a lot of those situations where you just want to go back to the main story hub and, you know, level up things, talk to the blacksmith. I wish that the character's main weapon was like a bit more important in a sense. You find like a fork on the ground, and that becomes your melee weapon, and that'd be fine. It, like, for me, story wise or lore wise, if you were just picking up a bunch of pieces of trash on the ground and using them as weapons, like maybe a popsicle stick or like a spork, which is higher damage, but there's none of that. You essentially have just this fork this whole way, and you can upgrade it at the blacksmith, who like makes it stronger if you find certain items. And like in Hollow Knight, you do that where you have your needle as your main weapon, and you can upgrade the needle, and it may change visually or aesthetically in some certain ways, but the fork here just kind of always stayed the fork, which I'm fine with, but I'd be a lot more okay with that if I was able to pick up other melee items on the ground. So I was kind of let down by like the lack of lore there. I think that's like, I understand that games have budgets and you can't just make a bunch of, you know, items equipable on the ground. I'm just scrolling through my notes here. I'm trying to see what else I got
right now. But we made all these shells. The shells.
Yeah, there's so many damn shells on the ground that you can equip, which are really cool. And you could tell that's where a lot of the time was put into development wise. And I really appreciated and enjoyed those aspects from it. I know I've been sounding way more negative than positive, but I still enjoyed a lot of the boss fights. I enjoyed the music quite a bit. And yeah, I wasn't expecting the story. I think the game may have been like more of a 3 out of 5 for me, if those story and character moments weren't
funny.
there.
It's funny, and it's
got a great
right?
sense of humor.
Krill's a cool character. I liked who he was, or they are, and like, you know, launching off into the world and the comedy, and the lone shark is a shark on a stick, you know, talking head and stuff. Like, there's a lot to love about the world and the characters in there. That I think lots of, like, for me, you know, I if you remember from way back in the day, right? Aggro Crab made Going Under, that roguelike that was the internship roguelike that I loved so much back in the day, and we're talking about on Gamescast. So I'd been watching this one forever, and to jump in and be playing it in, like, you know, for, I think every game I'll talk about today is not a traditional Greg game. This was one that drew me in, obviously, because I already knew their humor and I knew this world. And like I always talk about with Souls games, right? Like, it's not so much the challenging nature of them that I don't like. It's more the world I don't want to exist in. And this is a world I want to exist in. I loved getting off the beaten path, finding the chests, finding the new pieces of whatever it is, you know, jumping, like you're talking about, falling, figuring out how to get over there. What do I do? All right, cool. Well, there's 3 crabs there, and there's that other swordfish thing that shoots at me. So like, how am I going to manage this battle? Like, I enjoyed that a lot.
And a lot of opportunities, like if you're, there's a lot of like great accessibility settings as well. There's the normal mode is like the hard default difficulty. Then there's,
if I can jump in here, because I think this is where I'll really shine. I liked everything I saw. I'm going up against the crabs. I'm having a good time. Again, I'm like, I got this. I fucking beat Bloodborne. I know what's up. You were impressed back in the day when I did the Father Gascoigne thing and almost beat him on my first try. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like a nobody. I know what I'm doing.
Didn't Tam get summoned into your game?
That was at the end when I was like, I hate this game. Can I please stop playing? Then it was the idea, though, of like, all right, cool. Like, you know, it's endless dodge, right? Like, I can get out. I can do it.
Yeah, there's no stamina meter.
This is playing the way I want to play. This is where I want to play. And then I got to that first boss. And it was such a fucking, like, okay, like, it is rubbing my nose and shit. As I still don't think I understand the parry system. Like you're talking about popping out and exploding them back. Like I haven't figured that out yet or whatever.
Well, the first boss, there is no parry. You have
There you
no
go.
parry yet.
So that's the thing is I was just getting my head kicked in by this fucking lobster guy. And the problem I had with it was, again, not the difficulty of it, but then the setup of it, where I was playing. This is during my sick leave. I'm playing. I'm tired. I'm enjoying the experience. And now I've ground to a halt. And as accessible as they've made it and done all these different things with it, it is, all right, cool, you've died. Which means I now come back and I lower down, I hit the button, I get the shell, I walk 2 steps to the right, hey, blah, blah, whatever the guy says to start the cutscene, skip the cutscene, fight him a little bit, okay, I died. Come back down, get the shell, 2 steps out, and after like the 7th time, I was like, all right, let's go into accessibility. I go into accessibility, and it was like I could give myself more health. I could lower their health. I could.
Yeah, I got you right here. There's story mode and there's easy mode and then there's hard mode. Or you can do an amalgamation of all of them, and then it'll turn to custom mode where story mode gives you the highest shell durability, reduction in damage taken, very, very low enemy health. You have extra invincibility frames when you dodge, the highest parry window. You don't lose money or the microplastics, so there's no loss in currency whenever you die and you have to go recover it. None of that happens. There's no pitfall damage, so you won't just fall into random holes. When I say there's no fall damage, I mean you can drop from a big tower and land on the ocean floor.
Because you're in the water, you're coming in slowly.
But there's still like pitfalls that are like a death if you fall into that random hole or whatever. Then easy mode changes some things and you don't, it gives enemies a bit more health than you would have in story mode, and then hard mode is the default.
So I went in and I tweaked all this stuff, and I was like, all right, cool, like, let's go. I didn't do the easy stuff. I was doing the custom stuff or whatever. And it was like I did 2 more and died. And finally I went back into accessibility. I'm like, fine. The final one is give Krill a gun. And it's the tiny ass fucking hermit crab with a Glock on his back, like a full size Glock. And you just put it down and shoot 1 shot, and the boss dies. And I was like, all right. Like, again, I cheated myself with the experience. I'm the screenshot of it or whatever. You know what I mean? But for getting through it tonight, to continue to enjoy the game and not hate myself, that was great. And so then I went back, dialed everything back to the normal difficulty, and played from there.
I even remember playing it at Summer Game Fest and them telling me, you want to be blocking a lot. And that's the reason why they're putting a lot of different shells that you can change into whenever your shells break during the actual boss fight. So like that's you're going to be tempted to dodge, you're going to be tempted to parry. By the end of it, I'm parrying everything because everything felt awesome and like I got a hang of the timing pretty well. But like in those intro moments, if you do find yourself playing this game, if you wake up in a fog and you happen to be playing this game,
I'm in a boss
what
fight.
am I doing? If you do buy this game, I would say, and you're not super into Souls games and like the whole dodge and reading telegraphed attacks, block as much as possible. It's going to help you out in the early game quite a bit, and that's what all those extra shells are meant for. Like they were put there by the designers to say like, hey, you switch these out whenever yours break, and you're gonna take a lot less damage when you're blocking than when you aren't and you have like a massive hit if you didn't time your dodge right.
How long did it take you to beat?
A little under 20. I'd say like
Okay.
19 and a half. It says 20.8, but I leave the controller, lying there sometimes, and I'm eating my little drumstick ice cream.
Oh, God, you got to.
Delicious.
Get to that little core.
Delicious.
Mike, you've been playing as well. What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
this one?
I echo a lot of what Andy says on that one. I'd be more on the 3 side, but I am early. I left the first open area, which is about 3 bosses, is what you'll encounter. And yeah, with Andy, what he's saying about the shells is I love what they do in all the boss arenas where they encourage you to grab new shells, use up that durability, and let it break. But I like the abilities that they add onto the shell. So each shell has its own unique ability that you can call upon, and it will do different things, right? I love the soda pop that has the fizzy bubbles that will add damage onto an opponent when it comes near that area, kind of like a landmine situation. I like the sriracha bottle where I spin and I can get out of things, or I can go into someone and add a little extra damage. I really like the touch of what that is. There was something for me missing in kind of the player feedback. You can tell it's like an indie game, right? It's not that Dark Souls. We put thousands of hours of polish. There feels something off whenever I hit an enemy or I get hit, or there's that moment where it's like, I think I wasn't there and it hit me and it killed me. And then you lead to the frustration cycle of, I've now done this boss fight 1,000 times. I've watched the same cutscene, but the world drew me in. I like the comedy. I like the fun. I like the commentary of the microplastics polluting the seafloor and what that leads to with all these characters. It's a good time, but it just missed something in that gameplay feedback that I wanted to see out of a Souls-like game.
Great, yeah. I get, like Mike was just mentioning that, and Greg was mentioning earlier as well. The dialogue and the writing is so funny, and there's so many random NPCs that have funny shit to say. There's like at one point 2 random like sea-dwelling creatures with a little piece of treasure in between them, and I walked up and I just took the treasure in front of them, and then I don't know if I triggered the dialogue, but one of them was like, "Hey Brett, you see this guy who just took our treasure?" Like, wow, what are we gonna do about that? I don't know, man. Like, such is life. Like, I forget exactly what happens, but there's like so many hilarious moments like that are totally inconsequential to the greater story. But again, just like I really enjoyed the commentary of the story initially. One of the first crabs you meet is like, "Oh yeah, our queen fucking sucks. I hate her so much." And you're like, "Oh yeah, there's a queen here, right? The Duchess. Man, I gotta pay my taxes. Hopefully I can get them erased or whatever." And the guy's like, "Oh, you're trying to get your taxes erased? Man, you must be like a little fucking leech, huh? You're just trying to like get us all to pay for your taxes." Just
a freeloader.
You immediately just like kill a dude and take his, like, you try to take his shell.
Weren't you just talking shit about the queen and how this all isn't like
yeah, he was
good?
like, "Wait, you were just talking shit about it." It's awesome. There's so many awesome moments like that. And yeah, I think like the story really goes places, and I don't think getting to those moments, like, I don't think you're suffering through bad gameplay to get to these awesome story marks. I still really enjoyed a lot of the experience. I enjoyed most of the experience for sure. And if it was less buggy, I'd probably feel a lot higher about it. But I still, it's still a great game for me, and I have been thinking about it a lot ever since.
Platforming and movement is fun too.
Oh, platforming's fantastic.
Like the floating, and he does a little swim to get away. Like Greg, I'm more of a dodge and like run away type of guy instead of a parry. And yeah, the parry's a little odd, but you'll get used to it. But the 3D platforming of the world, and then having the grappling hook to grapple onto things, and now he's moving even faster and you can float around. They do a great job of that, and it makes me want to explore the world. There's some hidden items that you can go find. It's fun to go over there and be like, "Oh, I'll spend an extra 10 seconds to go get that. It's worth my time."
Yeah, I have here as well, like, you talking about the platforming. From whatever happened in the demo, there may have been no change or improvement to it, but for whatever reason in the demo, I just didn't feel like I had a grasp on it necessarily. I felt like I kept on like shorting my jumps in a way, and it just didn't feel
I remember
awesome.
that from our GDC demo, where I felt that was the same way for me. The platforming was difficult, whereas I felt it was great for what I've played.
I fucking loved it, and it gets even more complex, and there's going to be a lot of moments that the platforming gets you to secret spots to find a really, really awesome treasure that you can exchange for more microplastics. There's a lot of opportunities to just really, really over level and feel powerful. There's tons of shit and junk that you could just sell that's going to be in your inventory. And there's also, when we talk about a lot of these action adventure games, there's when we were talking about Stellar Blade earlier, Blessing, and like the augment system, there are 3 little augments that you can have in this game that you'll find a lot of in the world, and you can equip to give you 60% higher charge damage, or one of them just is an extra life. So if you die, you come back to life, whatever. There's a lot of like different abilities like that, but those also give you a lot of extra microplastics. So I'd adventure for about 30, 45 minutes, come back and be like, "Oh shit, I can level up 3 times with all the stuff I've collected." And that just lends yourself to feeling more and more powerful. There's tons of opportunities like that if you feel like maybe it's really hard to grind in a sense. I did kind of fuck up where the game definitely told me, "Hey, you can't go back here. Like, if you hit forward, it was like a big red dialogue box." And I was reaching for my drumstick ice cream, and I dropped my controller, and it took me past. So I could have probably leveled up like 4 times or whatever, and I just couldn't, and I was really bummed out about it, and I just suffered through the final boss fights, which were pretty tough. And once I kind of figured out the rhythms and stuff, it got a little bit more, a little bit easier to digest. But it can be brutal. Like, this game is not, if you're trying to just go for the hard difficulty, it is no pushover. I know it looks cute as hell. It's going to treat you like shit sometimes, and you're just going to have to kind of like find the right way around it.
Well, there you go, everybody. Another Crab's Treasure. Moving on, though. Tales of Kenzera ZAU, a game I'm very, very excited to play. Have not yet got to play besides the demo. but both Blessing and Greg Miller have both played. Who wants to kick this one off?
I can.
Go for it, Bless.
Yeah. Tales of Kenzera ZAU is a game that I would say I enjoyed for the story and the themes of it and the setting of it, but it was a bit let down on the gameplay side. If I'm giving it a score on the kind of funny scale, I would ultimately give it a 3 out of 5. But it's one where if you're somebody who has seen the trailer or you saw the reveal at Game Awards and you were vibing with what was being talked about, you're vibing with the idea of playing a Metroidvania about grief, I would say for sure pick it up, go for it, play through it, because I think what it brings to the table in that regard did work for me. I'm very curious to talk to Greg about this. But yeah, like, you know, playing through it, I think the things that I was looking forward to the most were seeing, all right, like, it looks cool as a Metroidvania. Let's see how that goes. It seems like it's trying to tell a very interesting story here and tackle very interesting themes here. Let's see how that goes. And it's taking place in like an African mythological setting. I'm very excited about that. For me, as somebody who, like, one, I'm Nigerian, but then also, like, I feel like we don't get many games. We get very, very few games actually, like, in this type of setting. And I think on the setting side, I was very enthused. And I was very I'm happy with where we got to in it. Like, I like a lot of the inspirations they take in terms of the kind of story they're telling, the characters that we're working with. You are playing as like a shaman that like has sort of a spirit that is that you're talking to, you know, and you're going through the story of like having to deal with this loss of your father, and that is sort of haunting you the entire game, right? It's him going back and forth with this man he's talking to in his head that is like, yeah, dude, like, I'm like, it's him getting into arguments, and it's him having to deal with like the sorrow of it. It's him having to deal with like feeling sad, but then also sort of going through these tales that are around him that are dealing with sort of similar themes. I enjoyed all that stuff. On the Metroidvania side of it, it's not that it's like bad in any way. It's more so of it is very standard. And if you know me and my gaming tastes, I'm somebody who just the label or like the feature of Metroidvania on the box does little for me, right? Like, I loved Metroid Prime playing that through last year because it is such a fucking good video game. I really enjoyed Metroid Dread for like, oh man, I really enjoy playing this as a video game. But like, usually if I'm picking up something that's Metroidvania, I'll often get more annoyed than not, where it is, all right, cool, I'm backtracking. All right, cool, like, I'm doing this. Like, that's not my type of gameplay style. And this as a Metroidvania, for me, has been very standard, right? It is, all right, I'm getting the new ability. Cool, I can, you know, jump further now. I can do this thing or I can do that thing to get past the thing that was blocked by earlier, right? Like, it is that kind of gameplay with combat that I would say, again, is very standard. Like, I like the 2 different kind of combat modes that you have in the game. You can like, we can attack with like sort of the spirit of the sun or the spirit of the moon, and like your moon abilities are ranged, where sun abilities are more melee based, and I like that back and forth. You have health bars on enemies that also are color coded red or color coded blue based on what type of attacks they're going to do more damage on them. I think stuff like that works. The feeling of it doesn't feel as crunchy or as satisfying when you're actually in the combat. Like, I found that there's a stiffness and when you're like hitting things that doesn't feel as great as I'd like it to. And I think the way I would describe it from the gameplay perspective is I think you can tell that it is indie, right? And I think the way that we got this game like announced, right, at a Game Awards, the way that it is like an EA Originals thing, you know, I think I was going into it thinking, all right, like, this is gonna be like a Ubisoft. This is gonna be like Prince of Persia, the Lost Crown, where it has the backing of Ubisoft and all these things. Once you get into it, immediately I was like, okay, no, like, this is an indie game from an indie studio.
First studio, yeah.
That
First game from a first studio.
Yeah, like, you can tell that this doesn't have like the budget of the entire world behind it, which is very okay, right? But like, you know, jumping into it, I think those things were also apparent in ways where I had to immediately kind of readjust those expectations from it on the gameplay level. And as I kind of got past those things, it was the thing of, okay, like, this is cool. Like, the exploration I think is fine. The feeling of it can feel stiff at points, and then also there are bugs that I encountered in terms of like my character would just stop running.
Did you have a dead stick every time you came out of the map?
Every single time I came out of the menu.
Every time you come out of the map, you can't move.
It's so funny because I was describing it to Barrett and Roger. I felt like a crazy person because I was like, yeah, if you press pause and you unpress pause, if you move, it's like, yeah, you don't move.
Just stands there.
And it felt like I was crazy describing it because they were like, oh, but doesn't that happen only every once in a while? But I'm like, no, you don't understand.
No, it's a Metroidvania, so you're running, you open the map.
Yeah. And so like, there's plenty of things like that where I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe this could have taken more time, or maybe this could have been one that like, maybe where I am coming down on it in terms of how it's hitting on the gameplay level, it is a thing of, okay, this isn't like a It Takes Two, we can tell that they have, or this isn't like, in A Way Out. Like, this is a studio's first game. It is a game coming in a lower budget, but it's getting that push from EA. It's getting that, that stage at Game Awards and all that stuff that is propping it up. And I love that for them. And by the time I finish this game, I think for me, I am excited to see more. Like, I am curious to see what else they bring to the table. But yeah, like for me, ultimately, I came out of this being like, all right, this is okay, but I really did enjoy what they did with like story and setting and stuff.
How long did it take you?
10 hours.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Greg, you also beat this game.
Yeah, 10 hours for me as well. I want to like this game so badly, and I don't. I think that's where I come down on it with it, right? Blessings going around talking about the gameplay, right, being standard. I would go as far as to say bland. And so I think it's easier to jump out and say the things that I think work really well in the game, right? Like, I think it's gorgeous, as you just saw. I think the performances are great. Like, the VO is awesome for the characters that are in there, right? I love the setting. I'm with you of like, I would love to see what the next game looks like. Because I feel like there's just so many there's so many things that are so close here but aren't there. And what I struggle with is that I want to like it. I want to tell people, and this is another one that's interesting, right? I talked earlier at the top of it, right? Like, the games I want to talk about today are not Greg games. Mm-hmm. Metroidvania is not a Greg game. Mm-hmm. It was the pitch of, this is a game about grief. I was like, you got me. You're going to make me cry. Let's go. And so it's weird for me to sit here and like, I don't want to like give it a pass as a Metroidvania because I'm not a Metroidvania guy. And so I don't feel like I have as much history there. But like, when I finished it, I was like, I'm not crazy, right? And I booted Prince of Persia and I played for an hour and I was like, no, this game's awesome. I want to actually keep playing this game. And that's my biggest complaint, I think, about Tales of Kenzera is that at no point when I was reviewing it did I put it down and was like, I can't wait to get back. I'm so excited to get back. I can't wait to that never happened. I would sit down and have a fine time with it. I wasn't like, this isn't like pulling nails or something like that, or, oh my God, I'm falling through the world, or I hate this thing. It just never delivered on any of the promises for it for me, and that includes the story, where the story just is a miss for me. Like, I wanted more of the grief. I wanted to go through. I think it has a strong opening cutscene that is like the introduction of course, like, and this is no spoilers. Everyone, I think, knows this from what it is. Your father has died. He was writing the story. You start reading the story. We play the game from there, right? And it's that thing of like doing that. It's like, oh, okay, but then I felt like the conversations with the spirit you're with, the characters you run into, it's all too few and far between. Like, I think there could have been a stronger narrative thread throughout that to remind me of it, to drive me home. Who is my Baba? Like, I didn't really feel like I got a lot of like who he is, what I was to him. Like, it just, it's trying. I think it relies a little bit too much. You're supposed to show, not tell, right? I think it tells us a lot without showing a lot, and I think that hampers the experience from a narrative perspective in the end. That when I got to the end, I'm like, okay, like I wanted to love this, I wanted to cry, I wanted to do all these things, and I didn't get that. And then the gameplay is the same thing, like Blessing's talking about, where it's just like, it's all serviceable, it's all Metroidvania, it looks fine, but like, I was never excited to play. I think there's a couple of boss fights in there I did enjoy.
I like the boss fights a lot.
Where I was like, okay, this was a cool take on this. But overall, like, when I'm talking about a score on it, I was like, I want to give it a 3. I think it's a 2, just to base the way our scales are. And I like that because then we get to talk and discuss them, right? But it's like a 3 we've talked about before, and I like it where it can be, it's okay, or it's okay. And it's like, I guess I could make a case for this being okay, but at no point would somebody say, should I play this game? And I'd say yes. Well, are you a fan of this? Then yes. Are you grieving, or do you want to know about grief? Yeah. Like, I just would say no to both those people. Like, there's nothing about it that's, for me, really grabbed me. But it's a weird one of like, I still want the next game. I still want to see what they learn. I still think there's so many things, right? Like, I'm like, they have a fast travel system, but there's not a lot of points of it. Like, to the point that I was like, before review today, like, the game's actually out, which is rare for us. So it's like, I'll get back in. I'll go trophy hunt a bit because I just have to get the collectibles at this point, right? And I started into it, and it's just like, I don't want to do this. I got to run all the way over there to get and then I can fast travel. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a ringing endorsement of a video game I spent 10 hours with.
What'd you all play on?
PlayStation 5.
PlayStation.
Okay.
Come on now, Andy.
Well, because I'm playing on Steam Deck.
Did you have dead stick when you came out of the map?
No, I'm only like I don't know, not even past where the demo went. I just wanted to kind of boot it up. But Steam Deck is in 1280 by 800 resolution. It's not just 720. So they do a little letterboxing, and it's like a graphic letterbox where like it feels like in-world graphics. Like they had a designer be like, oh, we should make just like a colorful kind of looking letterbox that feels like it exists in this world. And you have the option to turn that off. But when you turn it off, it also turns off all the UI. And so immediately it was like, it was really late at night, but I was kind of bummed out about that bug because I was being told what to do. I was like, what? I'm supposed to be talking to somebody, but I don't see any little character key art. I was like, oh, it's because I turned the letterbox. I was very, very bummed out about that. Anyway, sorry, Greg. Sorry.
No, you're great. That was valuable input. Thank you very much for the Steam Deck, folks. Yeah, so it's sadly a miss for something I was really excited about. And again, like, excited enough that it got me, I think, outside my comfort zone, right? Where it's like, outside of a Guacamelee or an Axiom Verge, like, what Metroidvania am I really playing? Now, I do want to go back to Prince of Persia based on what I played, so that's great.
That.
But, like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's a rough year to come out the same year as Prince of Persia.
It is.
But like
months
in my
next to it.
In my small time with it, like I really enjoyed the gameplay feel and the sound and the feedback and the sound effects of doing the dash and kind of comboing the moves together. I'm definitely not deep enough to have formed any sort of like educated opinion on it, but I immediately I'm like, oof, with Prince of Persia coming out this year and feeling as amazing as that did. Like, it's just bad luck of the draw to trying to do something similar-ish. And I'm still somewhat impressed by it, but it's just, like, really, really rough to have that immediate comparison.
Yeah, and that's definitely where I'm at, too. Having said all that, it's like, I am still excited to play this. Because, like, I loved Prince so much, and I love Ori, and, like, looking at this, I'm like, I know we get a lot of Metroidvanias, but we don't get many that have this look to it. And, like, playing the demo, I did enjoy how it feels. I get what you guys are saying, even from the limited bit I've played of like, oh yeah, I can see it being a little bit more rough. And I do think it's really so close to Lost Crown is difficult to get over, but still excited to play through this.
I was gonna say, like, I think it does work as another Metroidvania, right? Like, if you're somebody that's super into the genre, like, I would say I think it does some worthwhile things. Like, I like the abilities that you get by the time you get further into it. And it's interesting. We recorded our Stellar Blade review earlier today on PS I Love You. And one of the things I talked about with Stellar Blade was that I think that's a game that didn't feel as like inspired, right? Like, it didn't really go outside the box in anything, but what it did, with what Stellar Blade does, it feels so refined. Like, it is a super refined ass game that is taking a lot of inspirations. Whereas I think Tales of Kenzera ZAU is almost a flip for me, where like it doesn't feel necessarily as refined as a video game, but for the things that it did that it does that are fresh, like really work for me. Like, for me, it was moments where the character is talking about Baba and like it's like kind of crying out and like having those emotional moments talking about that. Like, where I'm like, damn, it's crazy for me to play a video game that, one, like, he is calling his father Baba, which is like very like culturally not American. They're playing in countries that call their fathers Baba, but like very African, but also like culturally based there. But then also have it be something that is going for something, that is trying to tell a story that is kind of bigger than itself, and playing Metroidvania that is, again, telling a story that's bigger than itself, right? Like, I've very rarely played a Metroidvania that feels like it's trying to do something like this, right? Tell a story of grief. And yeah, like, for me, the stuff works. For me, it's like, I think that is what kept me going all the way through. I could have dropped it at any second, but because of that, I was like, no, I kind of want to see where this goes. Like, I want to keep going with this because I feel like I'm playing something that it has something to say, that is trying to do something here. So I think there's something worthwhile there. But I'm also like, I hear everything Greg's saying in terms of it's not. I think it doing more telling than showing is accurate. And then also, yeah, like gameplay wise, not much jumps out, but I do think it's, like, I would almost use the word competent, like, as a
serviceable. Yeah, serviceable, competent, bland, or whatever. Like, I think that's all part of it. And what I sent Barrett was the trailer. It reminds me so much of Outland. Remember this game? This is the Housemarque game that was forgotten. When they stopped doing, hey, we're doing all these Housemarque games that are exclusive to PlayStation, they teamed up with Ubisoft and did a game called Outland, which wasn't bad, but it's the Houseland game everybody fucking forgot. And it's very similar in the color palette of red, blues and oranges or whatever. But it was cool. It was fine. It was whatever. But it didn't set the world on fire. And it was like, all right, well, that was something they made.
This looks pretty cool.
Yeah, this kind of looks rad, actually.
Okay, then we'll moving on from Tales of Kenzera to Mikey.
Let's play a little tennis, Tim. Let's talk about Topspin.
It's
returning after a decade plus.
No way, really?
Yeah, for real.
What?
You know that? That's crazy.
I didn't know it was gone that long.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I played a lot of tennis these past couple of days. And I'll tell you what, I'm raising up the ranks. I'm going up the leaderboards. I'm
Wow.
having some fun. But Topspin 2K25 is going to get a 3 out of 5 from me, leaning towards a 2 out of 5.
Good.
It is a bare bones, straight to the point tennis game, which is great if you want a good, competent tennis game, but it's lacking the fun. It is lacking that extra pizzazz that I think all sports games should have in 2025. And there's also this factor of it is not welcoming to the pick up and play that all sports games should have. When I think of a sports game, I think of any talent level should be able to see that sport, go, yeah, I can play that. Let's grab the controller and jump on. Now, of course, it has great skills, right? You're going to learn, you're going to get better, and there's a good skill curve and a skill gap that you will experience. But this tennis game is all about timing, and it is not welcoming to, hey, is this your first time seeing it? Grab a controller. You're not going to have a fun time playing against me, which I was very let down and disappointed in. It's got a lot going on in it, but it is bare bones to the minimum. So let's talk about a couple of things that it offers, Greggy.
Sure.
25 pros, 48 courts, and that's where it shines, is the presentation. The courts are gorgeous and beautiful. It has the daytime, the nighttime, the afternoon, different effects on certain courses or courts that really elevate the look when it comes to shadows or beating up on the dust clay courts, sliding across the clay courts really feel good and look good.
The red clay of Roland Garros.
Oh.
Who could forget?
It's fantastic, Andy.
Australian
But
Open.
it also has a single-player mode. It's got local play. It's got the Topspin Academy, which is voiced by Johnny McEnroe, which is fun. But I'll tell you what, he only voices half of it. And, of course, it's a lot of just sold in lines of like, you're doing great.
Hey, wow, fuck you, man. When he told me I was doing good, I'm like, thanks, John. Thanks, John.
You're
Feeling
doing
it.
great. Hey,
Feeling
you got
good
it
out there.
back out of the kitchen. You know, like, it's fun.
Loved you that episode of Curb.
It's fun,
Well,
but it's also...
you're in the no man's zone.
Yeah,
Get back.
you're
I'm like,
in the no man's
I want to
zone.
be out. I got to play close to the net.
It's odd because then you go into the actual meaty part of the Topspin Academy, and it just becomes the AI-generated Nintendo Direct voice lady. And it's like, oh, okay, we couldn't keep Johnny for the second half of this. All right, I get it. But
Cost money,
Topspin
buddy.
Academy is where you need to be to learn the game and actually get competent and good at Topspin 2K25. After that, they have online play, which has a world tournament and 2K Pro player
Was online
ranked.
up during this period?
It was. I immediately got blasted with "you have bad connection. This isn't going to go well," and I could tell my other opponent was not feeling it because he was all over the map missing balls. So yeah, it's going to be a 2K vibe like we have with 2K
God,
basketball.
I can't
and so
imagine.
that's will be unfortunate because it's all about
all
timing
about the
in this
timing on
game.
the bar.
All
It's not about
timing.
tapping. It's the thing that you got to release when it's in the green.
And so that's what you get from this. The positives for me, presentation, the courts look great. I love the time of day with the shadows and what it looks like. The player animations are dope. There's some great moments where you hit it behind your head, hit it underneath your legs when you're going to chase down a lob. Like, that's cool looking, right? But gosh darn it, 2K. What are we doing? I mean, we got to stop focusing only on the pros, and we got to give a little love to the NPCs in the distance, right? Because it's not the crowd, but there's a 2K lady that's going to hand you a trophy after every single tournament. And it's like, oh, man, we gave no love to this lady. And she's on every single game.
We bought her from the Unity store stock.
We got to be mindful of some of this stuff of like, I get we're putting it into Serena Williams and we're putting into Johnny McEnroe. But like, there are moments in this where you look around and you go, man, we just missed out on the idea of just kind of touching up a little bit here. And it's... The post-game animations are the exact same every single time. The walk-ins are cool with the presentation, but it's the exact same every time. It's just going to get samey every single time you play. I think the career is a lot of fun. The career is very interesting of how they broke that down and put rest at the forefront, which I haven't seen in a sports game yet, which is very interesting. It breaks it down into a year. You get 12 months to play. 3 different game modes in each month. So you'll have training, a nice special event, and then the tournaments. And it's interesting of when you go throughout the year, you'll start wearing down on your energy, which then will lead to, hey, if you're past 50%, you might get a minor injury. Or if you're past 30%, you'll get a major injury, which will make you kind of sit out maybe a month to 2 months. And that will affect where you're going to be put at the end of the year, your seeding and your rankings and your ability to grow as a superstar from rookie.
Money
right?
down the drain right there.
And I really like the idea of like being mindful of your energy and am I going to risk this at 50% where my stats might be down, I might get injured, but I'll get one more tournament in the books for the year and be able to elevate that much more? Or will I sit this month out, go to the next month and play? And it's cool of like My Career does all of that. Plus, you can hire a team who can be your medical staff, be your energy team, be your merchandising team, and each one of these players or characters that you select in can grow with and level up. All will affect your stats and kind of like all of that, which I really, really enjoy and dig. Man, I just
Customization on your dude.
Oh man, let me
it's
tell you,
2K.
Greg Miller's looking good out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I got the rainbow shades, blue polo, blue
Yeah.
shorts,
Cool.
white shoes. I'm fucking garbage, but I'm looking good.
Okay, that's all that
Yeah,
matters.
it's the ultimate 2K fantasy of here's your VC. Go buy at the store. We have certain brands like
Oh hell yeah.
Adidas, Nike, Puma, all the tennis brands that you can imagine. They're going to be there for sure.
You want that Puma visor? You're gonna have to pay us $18 real.
So you talk about learning, and I'm obviously right there with you. What I think my benefit to this is what's so interesting in terms of coming into this after not having played a tennis game other than Hot Shots tennis in forever, right? You know, I at WrestleMania got to play Legion for a bit. Him and I did a thing, and I beat his ass. No big deal. But it was
did Mario Tennis with us on a party mode.
Don't remember that. Doesn't matter. Don't remember anything about Mario Tennis.
Mario
doesn't matter.
Tennis.
Don't worry about it. But it's more the fact that we both didn't know what we were doing, so we were able to keep it going, right? Now, as I'm in the thing trying to grind, I'm like, oh man, I'm trash at this. I don't fully understand when it wants me to release. I've done the McEnroe part of the academy, but I haven't gone, all the way deep into it and stuff. Are you at a point where you're having a blast with it? Would you like to be having head-to-head competitions that are super heated, or like, do you think it did a disservice by doing this, meter that you have to release in the specific window?
I wish you could turn it off in the settings so
Yeah.
I could have moments where I can invite Tim onto the couch and he can just play and tap it when it comes near his player, and we can at least get a volley going. I now am excited to play higher ranked AIs to real life players because I have figured out the mechanics of the power shot compared to a nice
Lob.
No, not the lob.
Slice?
The other opportunity is a controlled shot. So the power, you hold down the button and release on the timer. The controlled shot is you let the ball come to you, and then you will tap it when the timer gets into the green, right? And so it is much more of a play what kind of play style you like. Are you up on the front looking for the volley, or are you in the background playing more defensive? And I like that Johnny McEnroe does a great job at explaining tennis to you, and you become a good tennis player. But there are certain features that it's just missing that fun aspect. And I think first off, it is the learning curve, and it should be just simple as pick up and play. Second is it gives poor feedback. You're going to play.
That is one of my, that would be, if I can jump
Yeah,
in, sorry.
jump in.
That would be my big thing is like, I get it. And to a degree, but after just coming off of WWE 2K, where we had Roger sit down and jump in, it's his first wrestling game in forever, right?
Yeah.
And we've done party modes or whatever where people jump on stream and grab it. Like Blessing, who understandably is great at games and great at fighting games, was able to jump in and understand what's going on in that, right? Jumping into tennis and knowing the basic rules, I was more hopeful that like, okay, cool. Knowing a lob and a drop shot and whatever, like I'll be able to get in here and then figure it out more. Whereas this was like, no, there's a lot of heavy lifting early on of what is going on and why it's happening and what strategy is. And I was like, fuck, I wish I had more guidance on this to tell me what was happening.
It's missing that like player coach to give you the feedback. You get dropped into the exact same training sessions that you will see throughout your career, right? It just goes from bronze, silver, gold to platinum of like certain points you have to get, but the training will always be the same. And it's like this weird, delicate balance of a controlled shot versus a power shot. And are you doing that correctly into the areas to do that? And if you're not, you're going to have a bad time. And it doesn't tell you, hey, you're doing it wrong. This is what you need to be doing. And it misses that. And there should be some sort of safety net to say, hey, this is where you're messing up. You need to be over in this area. And so,
and that's the thing where it's for me, like, again, I know I told you and you're like, you got to go back to the academy. You got to go back to the
Gotta
academy.
be in the
But it's the
academy.
idea of like, having done the initial academy thing and going through, like, okay, cool, I'm holding and letting go in the green, but why is this shot crazier than that shot? Like, when, like, at one point I'm playing, I'm like, oh, okay, it's when it contacts with the clay. That's when no, that just worked on that one volley for some reason. It never worked again. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you want me to do?
yeah, it's missing that hand-holding experience. And so there's a lot of things on that side where it's just like, man, this isn't fun. This is for the diehard tennis fan. This isn't the Mario Tennis pick up and play with your friends and have fun. This is I want to get good at a tennis game and I want to battle someone online or my friend who is good and we're going to climb up the leaderboards. That's what this is. This game was made in a room full of suits and they said, how do we make a true to life tennis sim? they're missing the fun part of it. They have a great soundtrack, an awesome, like Madden, NBA, FIFA always hits you with these fun yearly soundtracks. And every single time you load into something, it cuts the soundtrack. You go into a dead quiet training facility, no soundtrack, just their theme. It's like, you got a great soundtrack, just keep playing it. You go into matches, and I get it. Tennis is very buttoned up. Tennis is supposed to be quiet, but man, oh man, after you play 100 tennis matches, you are dying for some sort of sound, some sort of
This
commentary.
is why for Greggy Miller, I went in there, I'm like, make him grunt on everything.
And you-
the player, I'm like, grunt. I'm a
You
grunt
can
on
do the
everything.
grunt.
If you fart, they put you in an electric chair.
Yeah.
You
And
Wimbledon.
It's crazy that it's just missing out on some of the fun factor, and I think is the big one for me. But
Johnny Ace playable?
you can make Johnny Ace if you want to. He's not playable,
He's not playable,
unfortunately.
man. He didn't
Yeah.
license out his shit then.
Not big enough. I appreciate the podcast. We've gotten to the world of sports games where they always have a podcast. This young rookie's an upstart. He's looking great. Oh, what a terrific month he had. He won the Wimbledon Cup. I love that. And I hope that we can build
You
off
didn't sound
of
like
that.
you like that at all.
You don't like that
No,
stuff?
it sounds like it sounds like the can be like FIFA commentary.
Well, that's what I'm going
Yeah.
to say is I hope that one day we get to a point where we can use AI technology or something to better these in the future. I know people don't like hearing the word AI, but like there's got to be somewhere where
Especially
we can
with
build
voice
off
acting,
of that.
Mikey. Be careful with that.
Or on top of that, a rivalry system. There should be no reason why I'm jumping into a game and I see Rudy Kajudi over there and we're just not rivals yet. It's like every time, make something. Use these technologies for good, and that's where it should be used. It's like, I should have a rivalry system in this where I know I'm playing that guy.
Nemesis
and we're gonna
system.
Yeah, I was
square
going
up,
to set
you
what
know?
I was too. I was
It's like,
circling it.
There's
Nemesis.
moments in this where it's like, oh, we're heading in the right direction in sports games. There's fun things, but we got to take it to that next level, and they don't do that.
Those are my favorite
unfortunately.
parts of like the old Mario tennis games back on
64.
on Game Boy and stuff. Like having that rival, having that RPG moment of the there's fucking Red or there's Gary or here's this asshole from the other club who's here to talk shit to me. So it sounds like you want more of like a little narrative experience. Have you tried Sports Story or
I've
Golf
tried-
Story?
Yeah,
Golf Story.
great game, fun game. But yeah, there's also in-game purchases.
The
Nothing
dismissive Andy.
Nothing crazy. There's a battle pass. They call it the center court pass. They'll update every 8 to 10 weeks. Your generic, hey, you give us $10, we're going to give you a bunch of items that you're probably never going to use in the game after 100 levels, right?
Servers
already
will
buy it?
be
You
up
already
for
buy
8
it?
months.
I can't do it anymore.
And then, of course, they also have some interesting ones of, it is not like 2K basketball, which I appreciate, where you can just straight up buy your character up to a certain level. They don't have that, which is nice. But they do have, you can buy XP tokens, which will then help you grind. And so, mind you, when you start at level 0, it's only 150 XP. Or it's now at level 20 for me, 13 or 1400. So it's never that big, but you're only getting like 40 points of XP a match, right? And like certain things will be different in tournaments and stuff. But like it is a little bit of a grind where you're like, oh man, like I wish this was going a little bit faster, but I'm level 20 and I've played a fair amount of matches there. They do have an interesting players pack that just released today that wasn't during the review build of if you pay them $12, they'll give you 1700 VC and one of your My players up to level 12. If you give them $20, they'll give you 3400 VC and 6 of your players up to level 10.
2K is 2K,
And
man.
so it's very interesting
Holy
of
fuck.
like, I could tell when I jumped in online, I was higher level than the other guy and he could compete with me, but like, you could tell like I was about to mop the floor with him if I really got it going early. So there's a little bit of like when you go online and I'm 20 and you're 11, you're going to be at a disadvantage here.
It's 2K all over again. Finding, you spend $300 or whatever to get a level 87 overall. Or I don't know what the math is, but
Yeah.
it's like, well, they paid their way to get here, and now they're here, and I'm getting my ass whooped.
That sucks.
Damn.
If you want a true to life tennis sim, this is for you. If you're looking for a fun tennis game, this isn't for you.
Or play everybody's
Damn.
golf, which isn't tennis.
What
You know what he meant. You knew what he
I'm just
meant.
gonna go play tennis in real life.
Go play.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, that's Topspin, everybody. Closing out the show today, I do want to talk just a little bit about Sandland. Who has played Sandland here? Greg Miller has.
Barrett Courtney.
And Barrett
Don't leave out
Courtney.
Big Barrett.
I only played the demo.
You know when Barrett Courtney and I
boot
are
it
talking
up.
about games, it's nerdy as shit.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Nerd
Yeah,
me
so
up.
Sandland, of course, based on the manga, this one jumped out at SGF last year, Summer Game Fest, where I took a Bandai Namco demo, and they were like, can you come see this game too? I was like, I guess. And I played, I was like, wait, this is actually this is actually great. Like, I can't tell. Action RPG, open world, to a degree, obviously. Open area, I guess. Or would you call it open world, Barrett, I guess?
I would say this is an open world.
It's open world, yeah.
It's just, we're so used to huge open
Yeah,
worlds.
it's not a
as late.
huge open world by any stretch of the imagination. You are Beelzebub, Satan's son there, the prince. You are living in Sandland where there's no water. This dude who's a sheriff shows up, says that he knows about a mystical spring, and you, Thief, and him are off on a Rick-rolling adventure in Sandland's deserts where you fucking have all sorts of crazy vehicles, and you shoot shit, and you find friends, and you fight scorpions, and you open up a million different chests. For some reason, in one of the first missions, Thief dresses as Santa Claus to infiltrate enemy, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And Barrett nailed it. What did you say, Barrett? How did you describe this game?
Simple but charming. Very basic but charming. And there's like a beat where your buddy Thief is going to go sneak into this town, and you're doing like a very simple stealth mission where you're just kind of walking around, avoiding enemy eyesight to get to a certain spot in the town. And the entire time I'm like, the gameplay isn't super engaging, but I'm along for the ride. There's just something about the charm and the magic of this game that I and it might just be the strength of the IP, which I am unfamiliar with.
I'm unfamiliar
not a
with as well.
Toriyama guy, but I know this is from Toriyama back in like 2002 or 2003. And there's just something about the writing, the characters, the way like conversations are paced out, which feels like funny yet dry, that I really am digging.
Yeah, I'd say I'm 4 hours in. Barrett, where are you?
I am roughly 7.5 hours in, and looking at Steam achievements, I think I'd say I'm a third through the story.
It's enjoyable, but I agree with Barrett. I think it is simple. It's charming, and so it's one of those like weird comfort foods. To go back to Tales, right? I wrapped Tales and I moved on to this, and I'd have that thing where I'm like doing these simple ass missions, and it's like, all right, and then I put it down and walk away. I'm like, okay, I'm looking forward to playing more of that tonight. And I'm like, why though? Like, you know what I mean? There's skill trees and there's this and there's all like, it's just a fun little comfort food game to run through. I thought it was interesting, obviously, for me as somebody who has no connection to the source material, isn't a manga guy, that I was like, okay, cool. I'm enjoying this to a degree. I will not see it through for credits. I enjoyed what I played of it. I'll move on to the next review. But when I don't have something else, I'll get in there because, again, you got a tank, you got a jumping robot. They're fun to control. They're fun to fight things. You're leveling up. You're beating up giant scorpions. It's like, all right.
Yeah, this is one that I would like. Something. There are multiple moments last night in my playthrough that I was like, damn. In my heart, I feel like this is a 4 out of 5, but my brain is telling me that this is more likely just a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, 100%.
There were a lot of moments that clicked with me, and because I'm a fucking weirdo, I was the one picking up the Mad Max video game the day that Metal Gear Solid 5 came out.
You and Colin, that was it.
And you know what? I liked that game. It's nothing special, but it was very simple, but it was really satisfying car combat. And like last night, I finally got into some like boss encounters and just like normal encounters in like your big tank or one of your like you can nickname your vehicles. So I have like Tanky as like his nickname is Heavy, and like I got my jumper bot and his name is Jumpy. And
I got Porty and Cole.
There we go.
And like encounters with them that are like really interesting and like fun to play around with in combat encounters. And then there's like story beats that I got to where I was like, oh shit, like I'm doing a side quest which doesn't really level up your character, but is good for kind of building up this town that you're associated with. And like it fell apart as nothing as this old rebel base, but then you're trying to grow it and get new people to come there and slowly build it up over the course of the game. And you're kind of getting satisfaction in that. But then there's like a side quest that like actually weirdly hit me a lot because it kind of came out of nowhere. Again, with this like a good reminder of like, oh yeah, this is kind of a not post-apocalyptic, but like the world's fucked up in this world, and like water is a very rare source, and there's a lot of like heavy themes that aren't always the forefront, but you know they it creeps up every once in a while, and
it's a nice little surprise. I think if you look at it and you're like, hey, I have any interest in it, it's worth a look.
I want to continue playing it. It's the weird one where it's like, oh man, I should probably pick up the anime actually because they've been it's been releasing on Hulu and Disney Plus or something.
Yeah, Hulu's been really pushing it.
But for some reason, I'm like, No, I like experiencing the story through the here. I don't know if the stories are 1-to-1 or whatnot, but I don't know. I'm treasuring my time with this. It's been a great comfort food. If you just want like fun, simple car combat with a charming cast of characters and an interesting world and plot, which honestly, like shout out to that. I thought the entire kind of story was going to be centered around this one thing, and it actually gets a bit more complicated than that in interesting themes that I was not expecting, but I'm really, really digging in terms of, the power of a few and how they abuse that, and how it the many who are not being served out there are kind of getting tired of it.
I got really fed up with the amount of repeated character barks.
Yeah.
When you're out there in the open world, is that still pretty present?
Yeah.
Like it felt like it was like, what, man? That's the 4th time you said that in the last 6 minutes.
That's the where I back to when Barrett's like, maybe my heart's full of 4, but I know it's a 3 kind of thing. Like you play it, it's like I feel like that's when it's like it shines through of like, oh, this is what that game is. For me, it was running around getting the jump bot where I was infiltrating this build, not even infiltrating. Just going through this, giant, almost like shell-like structure from Metal Gear Solid 2 to get this thing. And I'm going, and it's just like, I started ignoring the treasure chest because I'm just like, you open them, and it's just like, bring, all these things are popping. I'm like, but what does any of this shit mean?
Upgrading your vehicles is like a lot of it. And because that was the confusion I was getting with like the side quests and like anything that was outside of the main quest, or even just like fighting enemies outside in the world. Like your player Beals is XP to get to the next level is like 2,000, but then any like enemy you fight is like 1 XP, and I'm like, what the fuck? Yep. And so like they definitely want you to level him up through the story, but then all of the like any optional stuff, any open world stuff, I feel like is geared toward like focusing on your vehicles. Because I went back to the garage, so I was like, oh shit, I can level up my vehicle like 8 times right now, and I was not paying attention to that. But I don't think they onboard you super well. This is also, I want to shout out, this is developed by ILCA. They're a newer developer. Interesting track record. They were the ones who made Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shine.
I knew that sounded familiar, yeah.
And that was like their first big release. They did the Idol Master Starlet season before that, and then they, I think, were kind of a support developer for Pokemon Home. But their other big game that they released after Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, Mike, is One Piece Odyssey, which we really enjoyed, but a very, very pretty. They know how to adapt like 2D animation into a 3D style that feels right at home. Really charming, like writing and characters, and like it fits into what the original manga or anime is. But they're still kind of getting their sea legs and figuring out like what a really interesting, gripping game can be. And I think they've gotten a bit closer to that here in Sandland. But I don't know. I'm excited to see like what they can do in the future because again, this premise of just anime Mad Max 2015, the video game. Fuck yeah, let's go.
Hell yeah. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us to talk about video games. Thank you for listening. Let us know in the comments below what games we talked about today you're planning to pick up and play, and also what you've been playing. And also if you're watching Mad Max in review. It's a great time.
Wow.
This week we're doing Beyond Thunderdome. Andy, I don't know if you've watched this one yet.
No.
Oh, strap in, baby. It is crazy, man. Crazy. It's going to be a fun time. But until next time, I love you all. Goodbye.